623 12 12 14 December 2020. It's 4:37 in the morning, and I've been doing this all night because I might as well, because I'm on nights. So probably after a couple of more videos, I'm going to call it quits and then try to get some sleep. So this first one, it's from Zero Hedge. An ominous sign: Americans have begun stealing food to survive. Tyler Durden, Friday, the article, December 11, 2020. Authored by Daisy Luther via the Organic Prepper blog. If you've been waiting for a sign that things are really bad economically in the United States, here it is. Americans who had never had contemplated shoplifting before are stealing food to survive. One of the things that we often say in preparedness circles is as we watch chaotic Black Friday scenes or fiery riots unfold is, you think it's bad now, just wait until people are hungry. Well, guess what? People are hungry. I wrote the other day about how the response to the pandemic has destroyed the personal finances of American families. An area that deserves more attention is food insecurity. Food insecurity is defined by the U.S. Department of Agriculture, the USDA, as a lack of consistent access to enough food for an active, healthy life at a household level. Hunger, on the other hand, is a personal, physiological condition that results from food insecurity. The word hunger, the panel stated in its final report, should refer to a potential consequence of food insecurity that, because of prolonged involuntary lack of food, results because of prolonged involuntary lack of food results in discomfort, illness, weakness, or pain that goes beyond the usual uneasy sensation. All right. More than 50 million people are suffering from food insecurity. In the United States right now, a number that has leaped dramatically due to the response to the coronavirus. Yeah, the response would be shutting down the economy, not allowing people to go to work, earn money, and provide for themselves food, shelter, people getting kicked out of homes. Meanwhile, an estimated 54 million Americans will struggle with hunger this year, you think, depending on where you live. A 45% increase from 2019, according to the U.S. Department of Agriculture. With food aid programs like SNAP and WIC being reduced and other federal assistance on the brink of expiration, food banks and pantries are being inundated, reporting hours-long waits and lines that stretch into the thousands. There are a number of reasons this is occurring, such as at such large numbers. Number one, massive numbers of job losses. Number two, the increasing price of food. Number three, children who used to get breakfast and lunch at school are now eating 3 meals at home. And lastly, many families who can't afford their bills and groceries still make too much money to qualify for federal food assistance. As food becomes more difficult to acquire, people are becoming desperate. Hunger in the United States has reached a level that hasn't been seen in decades. Much of the additional aid from the government expired months ago, and our elected officials are too busy playing games to pass a bill that will actually assist people who are suffering because of their without lining the pockets of big businesses, and mostly because these politicians are just playing games with each other, but based on the lives of the citizens of the country. More than 20 million Americans are on some form of unemployment assistance, and 12 million will run out of benefits the day after Christmas unless new relief materializes. Though lawmakers have made progress this week on a $908 billion bill, details are still being worked out, congressional aides said. Several food programs that have provided billions of dollars in fresh produce, dairy, and meat to U.S. food banks are also set to expire at the end of the year. The largest among them, the Farmers to Families Food Box, has provided more than 120 million food boxes during the pandemic and is already running out of funding in many parts of the country. The government, the ones who have caused this crisis by destroying millions of jobs and hundreds of thousands of businesses, aren't doing a whole lot to help. While it isn't the government's job to take care of everybody, does that change when they're the ones who screwed everybody in the first place and created a situation in which people couldn't take care of themselves? Unless you want to get arrested. We know what side they're on. So how are people without any money getting food? Well, 20% of Americans are now turning to food banks to help keep their families fed. And according to a report in the Washington Post, the shoplifting of food and other essential items is increasing significantly. The result is a growing subset of Americans who are stealing food to survive. Shoplifting is up markedly since the pandemic began in the spring and at higher levels than in past economic downturns. According to interviews with more than a dozen retailers, security experts, and police departments across the country. But what's distinctive about this trend, experts say, is what's being taken. More staples like bread, pasta, and baby formula. We're seeing an increase in low-impact crimes, said Jeff Zissner, chief executive workplace security from firm Aegis. It's not a whole lot of people going in, grabbing TVs and running out the front door. It's a very different kind of crime. It's people stealing consumables and items associated with children and babies, while these politicians play games with your lives. To be clear, more of the things being stolen are far from luxury items like body wash and avocados. Items being stolen the most frequently are diapers, formula, ground beef, rice, pasta, bread, milk, and winter clothing. The people who are stealing smaller items and focusing on big companies that can absorb the losses may think that they'll get in less trouble because the value of the items is so low, but they could be in for a terrible surprise. An employee of Target who spoke to me on condition of anonymity warned that many of the larger stores like Target and Walmart have facial recognition software, and they keep records of what a person is stealing. He explained how it works. Stores like Target and Walmart have facial recognition software, and they will put you into a database even if you've only stolen one small thing, and will wait until you've stolen a cumulative amount of $600 to $1,000 worth of merchandise so they can charge you with something bigger. So, for example, if you walked into a Target in Richmond, and you stole a pair of panties and then went to a different city, say Charlotte, as soon as you walk into the store, it pulls up your face and gives security the option to open the file and see all the other tapes with your face on them. You know all those cameras that are everywhere in the large discount stores now, including the self-checkout counter and over the doors as you walk in? Yeah, those are the ones putting you in a database. While it feels like our nation's economic disaster has been going on for a very long time, we're still in the early stages. We still have a regular rule of law in most places. We have police officers, a court system, and some forms of government aid, but as things worsen, and they will, so too will the level of desperation. Shoplifting of food and necessities has increased dramatically since last March. Retail theft in Philadelphia is up 60% over last year's numbers. This kind of theft always increases after a major disaster, but according to Reed Hayes, a criminologist at the University of Florida, and the director of the Loss Prevention Research Council, the current trend line is skewing even higher than normal post-disaster. The fact that retail theft has continued to increase so dramatically is an incredibly important warning sign for us to heed. While some people seem to be stealing out of a sense of entitlement, Black Lives Matter, Antifa. Others are stealing in order to survive. No longer are people able to put together meals from food banks, government assistance, their jobs. They're stealing in order to feed their families. If you look at economic collapses, historically the thefts start small. You see the things we're seeing now, a mom trying to feed her toddler, a broke young couple trying to replace the things they can no longer afford to buy. But don't expect things to stay at that current level. Where do we go next? Well, hopefully it won't get this bad, but consider Venezuela, a country whose path to economic disaster we are paralleling at a rather unsettling level. And if I'm not mistaken, Dominion Voting Systems was very instrumental in putting in power the people that are in power in Venezuela, who've helped to create all this mess. And we're seeing exactly the same thing now here. There you go. The difference is we're armed. Remember in Venezuela when people began attacking trucks carrying supplies? Or how hungry people have stolen cows and horses from farms? Or how they've raided the zoos in search of meat? Remember the videos and photos you've seen of hungry people looting? Not for televisions and expensive sneakers, but in order to eat. You know, all the people that, Venezuela, one of the places, just like Cuba, that all the liberals love and want to go to, that great socialist paradise. Well, when all the stores are out of food, when all the farms have been plundered, where do those hungry people go next? It's not a stretch of the imagination to think they might show up at your front door. It would probably start with the folks you know, friends, extended family, neighbors, who all think you might be able to spare a meal or a loaf of bread. You should consider now how you plan to answer that question, which will, of course, vary from person to person. I hope you've practiced careful OPSEC all these years that we've been talking about it, because we're approaching a time when that your insistence on privacy won't seem silly to the people who thought you were cute, but maybe a little paranoid or a little kooky. If things continue to decline and it becomes well known that you have a supply of food, you'd better hope that you have a vigorous defensive plan and a means to enact it, because you're going to have a Black Friday mob at your gate. And they're going to be going after the means to stay alive, not just sale-priced bathroom linens. Word to the wise.